Hello, Universal Salvation for December 7, 2025. Today we will reflect in detail on the amazing fact that non Jewish, non Israelite, and even non Abrahamic peoples, Gentiles, were somehow allowed into the early Christian church. It was a hard sell, and today's readings give us just a hint. Begin with the first reading from Isaiah 11. It's a fairly long prophecy about the Messiah, the one upon whom the Spirit of the Lord shall rest. Over the course of 10 verses, we hear many wonderful attributes about this person, and even that in his time conflict will cease. That's the part about the lion and the lamb lying down together. But listen carefully at the end. There shall be no harm or ruin in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be filled with knowledge of the Lord, as water covers the sea. On that day, the root of Jesse, set up as a signal for the nations, the Gentiles shall seek out, for his dwelling shall be glorious. Now, notice that the earth, not just Israel, will be filled with knowledge of the Lord. From this, you might think that means the Messiah would be there for everybody, but maybe not. Notice what follows. On that day, the root of Jesse, set up as a signal for the nations, the Gentiles shall seek out. Okay. All that says is that the Gentiles will seek out God's dwelling, Mount Zion, and maybe be welcome as visitors at the temple. But it didn't necessarily mean they'd be welcomed on anything like an equal footing, as we know was in fact the case at Jesus' time. This is why the church gives us the passage from Romans 15 as the second reading. There, Paul explains what was the most striking and controversial aspect of his preaching. Welcome one another then as Christ welcomed you to the glory of God. For I say that Christ became a minister of the circumcised, the Jewish people, to show God's truthfulness, to confirm the promises to the patriarchs, but so that the Gentiles might glorify God for his mercy. Okay, Romans 15:7 and 9. Unpack this carefully. Paul says Christ became a minister of the circumcised, that is, a minister chosen from among the Jews, so that the Gentiles might glorify God for his mercy. So Gentiles will actually be welcomed into God's mercy, not merely as visitors to the temple, but as full members of the family. And for those of you who doubt, look at Romans 8:17. Gentiles are co-heirs with Christ. We need to appreciate how radical that statement was. Jesus himself, Paul says, was a minister to the world outside of his own nation. While Jesus occasionally strayed into Gentile territory, think of the Syro-Phoenician woman in Mark 7, he overwhelmingly ministered in Israel alone, Judea and Samaria. But Paul confidently says that Christ ministered to the Gentiles, meaning that Paul himself, the self-styled apostle to the Gentiles, was really just following in Christ's footsteps. So rejoice in today's readings. They announce the end of ethnically based religion and the eligibility of the entire world for salvation.